Hey traders, Ivan Delgado here, Maxas commentator at Global Prime Brokerage firm. So what you're about to watch in this video is a high altitude eagle view of the crypto market. I decompose the analysis of price action in several charts, and ultimately I'm trying to come up with some ideas as I'm heading into the next week of trading. So in terms of the conclusions that I've reached, I gotta say that as usual, I have let the charts communicate to me the story, and from my perspective, the most clear-cut read that I've been getting so far is that BTC against the US dollar Tether looks ripe for further losses in the coming week. This has become my baseline after an aggressive bearish candle compromising its structure. This also has resulted in me having to somehow reconcile where this leaves us in the alts space against Bitcoin, since Bitcoin dominance is very depressed in the 40% mark, with a very compelling case to soon see a reversal. Now, interestingly, should this inflection to a higher Bitcoin dominance materialize, where is this going to be leaving us in Ethereum, for example? So I'm going to be answering these questions in this analysis. Also, we have to bear in mind that when it comes to the market cap, including or excluding Bitcoin, it still paints a rosy picture, and that is not making my job any easier because, again, as I said, I need to come to terms, I need to make sense of what would be a scenario where BTC US dollar keeps selling off and where that is going to be leaving us in terms of alt and Ethereum. So without further ado, let's go through the charts. The first one that I want to tackle, of course, is going to be BTC against the US dollar Tether. And here we are going to remember, the weekly chart tell us the story. And from what I perceive here, we had a high that was followed by a higher low compared to the previous lows right here. We then were followed by a lower high, and finally here we are confirming a lower low below the previous higher low. And what essentially that means is that from a Dow theory perspective, we have finally compromised the structure. Now, the close here in this weekly candle is happening below the previous close. That is a bearish sign to me. Also, the weekly bearish candle carries the highest volume that we've seen ever since February the 22nd. That week we had a very strong bearish volume right there, and this somehow resembles that volume that we saw a few months back. Now, in my opinion, with this picture in mind, a conservative target would be around the 42,000 or thereabouts. This will actually be this very first horizontal line we'll be meeting with this previous structural high. If you're looking for a bit more of an aggressive target, you could be looking into the 38, even though in between there's obviously going to be that 40,000 round number, which may actually hold some very important weight for a reloading of those deep buyers in the market. If you're really looking for pushing the envelope for bears to really do an excellent job here through this bearish phase, I would say that around the 34 to 35,000, that would be the ultimate target that I'm looking for, and that would be corresponding to a 100% projection target away from this bracketed area. There you have it. So that would be the 100% projected target, even though it is really hard to fathom how Bitcoin can fall that much in this overall bullish on-chain data analytics scenario that I have been analyzing for a number of weeks, and I report religiously to my room and to other networks of contacts. And really, if we were to fall all the way to 34 to 35, I think that would be an absolute gift. I don't think that this bull run is over. We have the absence of what we typically refer to as a blow off top. That's when volatility really starts to get out of hand, greed and exuberance is dominant, and we have not yet seen that in the Bitcoin market. Okay, so that's my view when it comes to the BTC US dollar tether. Now, the next market that I want to point out is the Bitcoin dominance, because it is really interesting what we are seeing here. Let me see if I can load up the chart, because this actually is an erroneous candle, it's a bogus candle, and it should not be represented as it is right now. Alright, so the next candle that chart I should say that I want to introduce is the Bitcoin dominance, and here really is the crux of the matter and where my analysis for the most part has centered around. Now, I see the potential for an inflection point once we've reached this area of 40. This is a round number, and first of all, I want you to understand the premise of this analysis, which is going to be orbiting around how important these round numbers and how meaningful these round numbers represent in terms of turning points at or nearby these locations. And you can tell by all the circles that have been outlined in this chart. These circles represent round numbers. Either it is the 80% mark in Bitcoin dominance, 70, 60, 50, or 40, and you can really tell that the big reversals in the chart tend to occur at or around these big round numbers. And notice that through the 2018 debacle of BTC and alts that followed, notice that the 40 was briefly surpassed, but eventually we had that second retest, and 40 was really that important level that led to this immense bull run by Bitcoin against the alts complex. We are once again at that 40% market level, and once we touch this 40% mark, with the level coinciding also with a 100% projection target. Let me show you what I mean. Here we got the support, right there was the high, so we can actually capture this box that I'm marking with a cross, and then we can extend that all the way to 100%, and that's the confluence that strengthens the case for this level really to be extremely relevant. Now, also very important, since the break of the 50% mark right here, the following three candles have exhibited increase in volatility. You can tell that through the size of this one, and eventually this one. Whenever this happens, watch out, because in this chart in particular, we seem to have what you would call a blow-off bottom, okay, as opposed to a blow-off top. And if and when that happens, this starts to fit the logic that we might see a rather impulsive rejection away from these very depressed levels of Bitcoin dominance. If history is any indication, after this 50% mark gives in, there is only about a month or so that the alts complex can remain below the 40% mark. Notice here that we actually lasted for about 4 to 5 weeks max. Here we could only last for 1 week. So even if we were to break below 40, watch out, because it is rather unsustainable that this market might remain well below 40 for a protracted period of time. Okay, so I think that overall the chances of a bounce back to 50 or even 60 all the way to 60 are far greater than us holding below the 35% mark. So you have to always think about a probability. This is a probabilities game, so think about, based on where we at, what's most likely that we continue to see alts performance versus Bitcoin, or is Bitcoin eventually going to turn a corner and start to outperform the alts complex, okay, or the rest of the market in this case, including also Ethereum. So we'll see what transpires. This is just my view and where we at based on Bitcoin dominance. Now, Ethereum against the US dollar tether, I gotta say that this is going to be a rather simple, basic, and brief analysis. The reason being is because this chart speaks 1,000 words. We have been on a relentless bull run, and this streak of 1, 2, 3, 4, 6 candles of consistent gains have finally come to an end, but we are well above the 13 exponential moving average. And notice how impressive this 13 exponential moving average has been, acting as a dynamic support every single time that we've touched that period. So I'm not going to be ruling out, of course, that we return back down towards the 2,500 or thereabouts, especially if we continue to see that sell-off in BTC US dollar. But this is a market that it is screaming that we should continue moving higher in the grand scheme of things. So that's about it. That's my analysis on ETH US Tether. Now, when it comes to the Ethereum, Bitcoin, this is where it starts to get interesting, because remember, I am supporting that BTC US dollar is going to be undergoing some type of an even more aggressive correction to the downside, while at the same time I am speculating that Ethereum US dollar is pretty bullish. So where is this leaving us with the with regards to Ethereum against BTC? Well, I gotta say that Ethereum BTC, very much as I was reporting just a few minutes ago with BTC Dominance, it looks like we are reaching this inflection point, nice confluence, 200% symmetrical target being reached. So whenever we see that this box, this bracketed area, gets to be surpassed, not only this is going to be acting as previous resistance turn support on the way down, but we also going to be laser focused into our next area of potential resistance, and that's going to be the next symmetrical target, especially if that target can be met with another additional layer of resistance. And you can tell here that this coincides with that structural high from May 2018. So a very relevant area where Ethereum might be struggling against BTC. So think about it. If BTC US dollar is going to be suffering potential losses, more losses in the coming weeks, and Ethereum BTC starting to struggle at that 0.083 thereabouts level, we might actually also be anticipating that Ethereum against US dollar Tether might be going through a period of strong correction. Now it gets even more interesting, because as we look at the market cap, excluding Bitcoin or including Bitcoin, doesn't matter. So market cap right here, notice that including all the crypto coins, we are still well above the 2 trillion. Well, not well above, but we are maintaining that that structural. And if you actually pay close attention, we have been respecting each and every level of support that was broken. Notice here that we had resistance, it got broken and got respected, it got broken, this resistance, and now it looks like we are respecting. So each and every support being respected bodes well for the interest of bulls. So there's no reason to think that we will not continue higher, exploring new new all-time highs in this market. Also, notice that there has been a lot of absorption. This volume has come at very high levels, and yet we are respecting that previous level of support. So again, by just looking at BTC, Ethereum US dollar, Ethereum BTC, and Bitcoin dominance, you might think, well, this is a market where US dollar Tether, like essentially sitting on cash, may actually be a good idea. But as you throw into the mix the market cap, it really is not telling us that story. So something's got to give here. Now, as we explore FUD, in this case the Ethereum against the total 2, so essentially here what we are doing is we are cross-checking the performance of Ethereum against the alts complex. We can really tell that Ethereum has once again executed a very big statement of intent, and I'm saying that because it is consolidating, it is finding acceptance beyond this previous resistance right here. Notice how many times we actually struggle and how that served as a springboard for Ethereum to really capitalize further and go into this massive insane run. So if that were to be seen once again, we could really see that Ethereum goes on an on a big outperformance against the alts complex. So Ethereum really ends as the real winner against the alts complex in this chart. Just to recap, the breakout also notice that it came with higher than normal volume, which adds, really adds credence to the bullish rally that we are seeing, and how that, as I said, could be acting as a springboard to see a lot of more gains ahead for Ethereum. A period therefore of Ethereum outperformance against the broader alts space is my base case based on this price action. Of course, on an ad hoc merit basis, there's going to be some alts, the likes of, you could think about the more solid projects, likes of Solana, Uniswap, etc., that may still outperform at times the broader market. But again, this is a macro picture that I am portraying for all of you. So just to recap, once again, we have seen a market that remains pretty bearish in the BTC US dollar market, and we really need to move away from shenanigans, from those that are spreading FUD, and really just listen at the chart. And the chart is telling us BTC US dollar further pain ahead is likely. At the same time, BTC dominance looks like it is at depressed levels. Can we actually move lower from here? Yes, we can. But the probabilities are that this market sooner or later is going to be recalibrating that market cap and heading back into Bitcoin. What really is important here is that these are price levels where you have to be prepared for some potential sea change that may be transpiring soon. Now, we've also talked about Ethereum and how Ethereum has been so resilient as of late, and that leaves me with this final thought, which is, hey, what about if, based on this market cap that we are seeing, which remains pretty constructive in both when including Bitcoin and when excluding Bitcoin, how about if potentially this could be a market that continues to draw more capital overall, as we are seeing through this, staring formation in this market cap and total 2, for instance, where we account just for alts, but this drawing of capital gets to attract, for the most part, Ethereum and a bunch of other altcoins as opposed to BTC. Okay, so that is where my thoughts conclude. This is a market that remains, for the most part, pretty constructive as it relates to Ethereum and the altcoin, but at the same time, this has to be reconciled with that BTC dominance that I have highlighted here. Okay, so I'm going to leave you with these thoughts. Hopefully, this is analysis that makes your navigation through these markets a little bit more informed. Okay, it gives you more information for you to account for and make better trading decisions. Until the next video is bye from me. Cheers.